Hello world, welcome to another episode of my weekly rant dedicated to inspiring the change of mindsets, especially our African mindset. Today I'm going to discuss the recently concluded conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. This is the best time to talk about this conflict because the guns have stopped and I hope emotions have calmed down. We should be able to talk about this issue in a sober way. But before I go into any details, if this is the first time you've come on this channel, subscribe so that you are notified every time I have a new video coming along. Alright, before we talk about the current conflict, we need to first rewind and understand the history. So, what is the history of this land? When you read the Bible, and actually even the Quran, when you read the first 5 books of the Bible, it gives the history of this land as the Holy Land or Canaan, and the native people were called Canaanites, but they were displaced by the Hebrew tribes about 1200 BC. That's more than 3,000 years ago. So the Hebrew, the Jewish people, have occupied this land for more than 3,000 years. But also there is another history which is about the Arabs. The Arabs came from Arabia, Saudi Arabia, around there, in around 634, and they conquered the whole Levant or Palestine. So since 634, 638, the Arabs have been occupying this land also, especially since the Romans had kicked out most of the Jews from that area. So historically, the Jews and the Arabs have claim to this land, though at different time scales. So the land belongs to both. Depends on what history you want to consider. But the current conflict, which has just ended, has a genesis in 1948. In 1948, when the British were about to leave the Middle East, they went to the UN and the UN decided to partition this land between the Arabs and the Jews because they were not getting along. And this is the map which shows how the land was roughly divided 50%, 50%. 50 to the Arabs, 50 to the Jews. The Jews in 1948 accepted their peace to be a state for the Jewish people. But the Arabs refused their part to be an Arab state. In fact, all the Arab countries, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, they all ganged up, and upon the Jewish state being declared independent, the Arabs attacked. But somehow, this small country of Israel was able to repulse off all the Arab armies, and in fact, it extended its land. In this map, you can see the green, the initial green where the Jewish state was before 1948 or a declaration of 1948. But after the war with the Arabs in 1948, the Jews expanded their land to include all these red areas. So that was 48. After the conclusion of that war, the Arabs were not happy about it. And there was another war fought in 1956, which is called the Suez War, Arab-Israel War, but that was kind of small. But the biggest of all wars was the Third War, which was fought in 1967. In 1967, the Arab states of Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon attacked the Jewish state, and just like in 48, the Jewish state was victorious. In fact, the Jewish state was able to expand and take the whole 100% of this map. The parts that belong to Jordan and Egypt, which in the West Bank and Gaza, were taken over by the Jewish armies, and even the Jewish army, the Israeli army, crossed over in Egypt and took the whole Sinai Peninsula. That was 1967. So since 1967, the Arab anger even increased 1,000,000 times, because now everything that they had in 1948 was taken away. And that has continued up to now. In 1978, Israel gave back the Sinai Peninsula to the Egyptians. So Egypt has decided they will never fight Israel. And Israel was able to sign an agreement with Jordan, and Jordan rescinded the whole West Bank and Jerusalem in the hands of the Jewish state, but there is peace between Jordan and Israel. Now, the conflict is between the Arabs who are under Israeli state sovereignty. These are the Arabs who are now calling themselves Palestinians. They are largely in Gaza and the West Bank. But every 6-7 years, there is a conflict between the Jewish state and these Arab Palestinians who are yearning for sovereignty or independence. This is a sovereign right that is defended by the UN. But every time there is a war, more than 20 times fold Arabs die compared to the Israeli people. In the recently concluded conflict, about 10 Israeli citizens died and more than 220 Palestinians died. So every time there is a conflict, it gets worse for the Arabs. And it is really sad, and that is why everyone, or many people, are starting to call this whole situation an apartheid state. The Arabs and their well-wishers feel that the Israeli state is treating the Arab natives the way the white South Africans treated black South Africans. But if this is the case, then I, as an African, I look at this situation and I'm able to deduce that if it's really this bad, that it's an apartheid state, then the only solution is to solve it the way the South African apartheid was resolved. We all know in 1990, when Nelson Mandela came out of prison, he was able to lead the African National Congress and the Umkhonto we Sizwe terrorist arm, which the South African government had called a terrorist organization. But according to black South Africans and black Africans, we were not calling them terrorists. We thought they were freedom fighters. But he was able to lead them to reconcile with the white government. And the result is that the people who were wronged, who were the native Africans, were the first to take the moral high ground to say, based on our morality, African morality, which everyone has come to know by the name of Ubuntu, or in Uganda we call it Ubuntu. The whole notion is you are because I am, or you can call it universal humanism. Like, I am because we all are. So there is a connection between my being and your being. Based on this philosophy, the Africans were able to forgive the perpetrators of apartheid through a process which was called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. You can Google it. All that happened was everyone had to be truthful about what happened to them and about the history, about their pain. The white people were able to air what truthfully hurt them or why they did what they did, and the black people were able to air truthfully the atrocities and what happened to them. And in the end, because African justice is about the living, not the dead, in the end, the aim was to make sure that the children and grandchildren, black grandchildren and white grandchildren, can live together in peace. And the best way to do that is not by punishing people collectively, but rather by forgiving, so that you can live for tomorrow. So that is what I think is the only solution for this Palestinian problem. The religious reasons are not going to work. Historical justifications will not work. The only thing that will work is to copy the African moral justice system and forgive and reconcile and live as human beings. Thank you for watching. Remember, everything on this channel is about inspiring the change of our mindsets. The struggle is to change our mindsets.